he was struck by the idea that we all know what quality is, but when we attempt to define it or capture it, what exactly quality is composed of evades us. In order to understand why he was obsessed with that question, and what he eventually created was Zen, where he tries to create a way of understanding quality by first trying to deconstruct a worldview that we've had since Aristotle, which is subject-object metaphysics. And the reason that he became obsessed with that particular, let's say, attack vector with trying to understand what quality is that he recognized that the big problem is quality in the subject or is quality in the object. So when someone says, oh, that has quality, is it purely a subjective phenomenon that somebody believes something has quality, or is it in the object? And how can you verify either? And of course, you can't verify either. You can't say that, you know, if you think that your family member has quality and you value them because of that, is that just a superstition? Or is there value that we can look at in your family member through a microscope and we can identify, oh yeah, there's value running through their veins, you know, that doesn't quite add up.
I think would be very helpful. And if this is not the right time, please correct me if I'm wrong, but to define metaphysics. It's a big, scary word for a lot of people. And then if we, we're talking a lot, again, it's the metaphysics of quality. This is very closely related to value and values. So I don't know if there's any specificity you want to add around those terms as well, but I think those are key building blocks to everything we're going to be talking about throughout this series.
I'll actually read the sort of definition that Pirsig gives in Zen. Metaphysics is what Aristotle called the first philosophy. It's a collection of the most general statements of a hierarchical structure of thought. It is the part of philosophy which deals with the nature and structure of reality itself. So it's effectively the outermost sandbox in which every other discipline sits, inside of.
Right.
So in that regard, it's also the most abstract.
So that's a great definition of metaphysics, which is also, I think Pirsig calls this later on the high country of the mind, which is something we can revisit. And it's the metaphysics of quality. So, but quality is a term, as you've already said, very ambivalent. Is it subjective? Is it objective? Is it somewhere in between? And this term also, which this ties it back into economics, which clearly this show has a lot of connections to, is quality is closely related to the concept of value and values. And as we will see when we go into this book, that actually, I guess Pirsig would argue that value and values are almost derivative of quality. What context would you add there between those terms, quality and value?
So when you say something has value, or it means that it will inspire and motivate action. And if action is the foundation of life, then value is the undefinable quality that inspires action through the valuation of it.
Yeah, that's great. So it's we're almost using the word quality as to point towards the ineffable thing that inspires human action. And so the example I commonly like to give to this is all action is in fact an expression of value, right? To walk from one side of the room to the other indicates to the world and to yourself that you valued being on the other side of the room more than where you were originally. So, and this will connect some dots here, but value has sort of multiple dimensions as well. You can have aesthetic value, you can have economic value, you can have moral value, but Pirsig's work actually ties them all together, which is really fascinating.
Yes, and I think we can just broach this right now. At the foundation of Pirsig's theory is, and this matches with similar theories from people like John Wheeler, who was a quantum physicist who worked with Richard Feynman. And he came up with a theory called the participatory universe, which is that actually implicitly the entire universe is a conscious marketplace. And what Pirsig states is that The metaphysics of quality suggests or proposes that everything is conscious and is making choices, from the cells to, electrons to mass to cellular biology. Everything is making actions based upon a value system, which, using the context of Plan B's stock to flow model, is like phase transitioning through properties as an entity becomes more evolutionarily complex.
Mm-hmm.
So at the low grade level of, a bacterium, it will value something, i.e. it will love something that will inspire action in it,
Mm-hmm.
that will be unrecognizable from us in our context of valuing a child in our family, because as evolution becomes more complex, the evolutionary development becomes more complex, the nature, the emergent property of value itself changes as an emergent property of the complexity.
Right.
Which is, to use the Bitcoin analogy, as Bitcoin's market cap increases, its properties will change as it becomes larger, in much the same way that water's properties change as temperature changes.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same fundamental element,
Right.
but when it's low temperature, it's frozen. When it's room temperature, it's liquid. When it's ionized, it's gas.
Yeah.
Its properties change, but it doesn't.
Right. And these are the layers that, it may be too early to bring these in, but just to mention them, there are layers to the static side of quality: the inorganic layer, the biological layer, the social layer, and the idea layer. Maybe too early to bring those in. I know we're getting off track already. We have to talk about very dense material, a lot of pathways to cut through it.